We're going to begin with opening statements. Leading off is Mr. Arluck. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It truly is an honor to address you all during this pivotal moment in our Republic's long and illustrious history. Pivotal is our moment due to the precipice America faces in light of its unsustainable course towards financial ruin. Of the afflictions we have succumbed to in recent memory, the culture wars of the 1980s, the impeachment battles of the 1990s, and the recent foreign interventions of the early 21st century all pale in comparison to the recent credit crisis beginning in the fall of 2008 and the looming debt and currency crisis of the next 2 decades. I stand before you all not to preach nihilistic opposition or cataclysmic apocalypse, but that of sober reality and inconvenient truth on the state of our union. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, to whom we retreat to for objective analysis of our nation's finances, projects the lowest deficit in the coming decade to amount to over $720 billion, of which our total national debt will increase by over $4.5 trillion in the next 5 years. Now, let me be clear that the current state of our fiscal shambles does not lie solely before President Obama's feet. He remains but one member of an enamored political class, which are beholden by both parties, with the notion of perpetual deficit spending and wandering quantitative easing. Contrary to former Vice President Dick Cheney's remarks that deficits don't matter, on the contrary, we are finding out currently that they very much do. The sources of these deficits are numerous and pervasive, ranging from the Medicare prescription drug plan from the previous administration, to the stimulus program of the current, to the military-industrial complex that is embraced by both party establishments, as well as the entitlement apparatus of our Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security programs. It is the sad and unfortunate nature of our politics that neither political party possesses the will to confront the scope of our fiscal shortfall. On the right, Republicans have advocated a policy of tax cuts predominantly for the wealthy, whereas on the left, Democrats have argued for perpetuation and indeed an expansion of the insolvent programs that comprise our social safety net. Neither of these policies addresses the structural deficits this country faces in the 21st century. Indeed, both exacerbate them. In conclusion, as we begin this conversation, I hope that we can all objectively and honestly confront the problems that this country faces. Thank you.
Mr. Frank, you have 4 minutes.
One of the problems with many economic models is that they don't work, at least not how they were intended to. However, it's important that we learn from our mistakes so we are not doomed to repeat them. It is this maxim that our politicians seem to forget time and time again. When the Clinton administration left office, the economy was in great shape. The country had the largest surplus we've ever had in the history of the United States. The stock market was at an all-time high, and the national debt was receding every year. This was caused by a bipartisan effort to balance the budget while increasing taxes and lowering spending. When the Bush administration took charge, it appeared as though the lessons learned from the 90s had been lost upon them. Immediately, massive politically motivated tax cuts were given to millionaires. 2 wars were started, and military spending increased dramatically. On top of this, the Bush administration extended wasteful spending in Medicare by enacting Medicare Part D. So what do we have here? We have less government revenue combined with massive new waves of government spending. This was fiscal irresponsibility at its finest. After the Republicans had been given the largest surplus in the history of the United States, they returned it with the largest deficit. Some would argue that the economy was functioning under the Bush administration. And sure, it was. But by no means was it a sound economy. Massive amounts of irresponsible spending, along with a lack of government oversight, was what created this crisis that threatened the very existence of our financial systems. Before Barack Obama had signed a single piece of legislation, he'd inherited a $1.3 trillion deficit, along with over $8 trillion of debt, and mounting unemployment where 750,000 jobs were being lost in a month. The threat of failing institutions that were claimed to be too big to fail, and you'd be stepping into the shoes of the president. So ask yourself, what do? Do you stick your head in the ground, or do you stand up and do something about it? Barack Obama, the Democrats, and experts at the Federal Reserve agreed the government had to step in. The Troubled Assets Relief Program was enacted during the Bush administration and continued into the Obama administration. An effort we can see was crucial in saving the credit market. However, it was not enough for the banks to just be secure again. The economy also needed a little more gas to get over the hill. I'm of course talking about the stimulus package. As the private sector continued to cut spending, Barack Obama invoked a basic tenet of Keynesian economics: have the government make up for the lack of private spending. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act did just that. It aided states that were struggling, which kept teachers, thousands of teachers, as well as cops, firefighters, and first responders from losing their jobs. It extended unemployment benefits for over 19 million Americans who were struggling to make it through the recession. It also put Americans back into work while improving infrastructure, something that in our country has been neglected for decades. Not to mention the largest chunk of the stimulus was directed towards tax cuts for small businesses and struggling families, $282 billion worth of it. So, has the stimulus worked? The answer by our credible economists is yes. As soon as the stimulus was passed, for the first time in months, the number of jobs being lost each month declined. Last month, we saw 162 jobs added, the most in 3 years. We've seen 2 positive quarters of GDP, which by economic definition means the recession is over. The last quarter rising 5.7%. This is record growth. However, the Obama administration is not satisfied with just a recovering economy. The administration is taking bold moves to create smart regulatory institutions and reforms that will protect American families as well as ensure future economic prosperity. It also aims to promote education by making it easier for students to get loans, as well as creating jobs in the 21st century, in order to maintain our top-tier economic standing throughout the globe. Thank you.
Thank you. I stopped the bell. The second knock was the bell instead of the bell.
Okay.
The bell seems meaningless. I reserve the right to use the bell.
Okay.
The first question is directed to Mr. Frank, who can reply in 3 minutes. Mr. Arluck will have a 2-minute rebuttal, and then Mr. Frank will have a one minute to wrap things up. Last year, Congress passed a landmark $819 billion American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, commonly known as the stimulus bill. Since the stimulus package was enacted, some have called for a second stimulus package. Would that be a wise move? Why or why not?
Well, I think it's important to note that the time when you expand your fiscal policy is during a recession, not during full employment, which was something that George W. Bush did. With that in mind, I think that the government spending has been beneficial to the economy. With the benefits is given to small businesses, to struggling families, and everything else. And I think, yes, a second stimulus might be exactly what we need. Obviously, the main focus this year for Mr. Obama will be on jobs. But thanks to the government spending that has already been passed, we've seen great improvements in the economy, which without a stimulus being passed